Chapter 9. White Feathers Like Snow. The month of sanguines would pass, and winter would end. Though time went swiftly, the harshness of the winter was grave, and many fell ill. Some became fey and died, and those who lost their life to the season of dying were turned into ash in large pyres, so that their remains could be scattered into the wind. This Elorn and Emily would witness, and for so their stay in Aletha grew them into men. In spring, Elorn and Emily both searched the forests at noontime for edible weeds and hewed logs for wood, so that there could be fire for food and warmth. Because Elorn was the son of Aletha's high commander, he was taught leadership by the order of Lady Uriel, whom he spent much of his time with. For she and Elorn would oft wander her garth and adventure into the forests, unshod like forest creatures, speaking to one another under their breaths. Though Elorn attempted to conceal his love for her, she would discover it, and grow fond of him equally. So in a month's time, their shared romance became heavily known within Aletha, and Elorn was therefore treated as though a lord. Uriel gave him her quarters and assigned him servants and personal guards. He at first accepted these things graciously, treating them to be no better than a child's new toy. But as the months passed, he grew to see little honor in having people serve him so closely, like a dotard in need of help. For so he bade them out of his service, though two would reject his ousting them, and severally they said, "Be us servants of a lord no more, but still, without oath, be we servants of a great friend." And Elorn, humbled by their loyalty, allowed them to continue aiding him. These two were his mentors in hunting and gathering, as well as swordplay and bow work. They were known as Thylor and Gorn of the house of Arnott, but at some times they called themselves Thylor and Gorn of the house of Bronn, for from that family they came to aid in the War of the Wolves ere the War of the Owls began. Thylor was a mighty swordsman who was known in legend as the Scorpelt, for in the War of the Wolves he was said to have slain 20 beasts, and to have worn all 20 pelts upon himself to demonstrate his superiority. However, Gorn was a master archer, said to possess the ability to dart moving foe from 200 yards far. By spring, Elorn had grown out of his hair and begun an auburn beard that added to his age. However, Emily's head had remained bald, and his body had remained fat. His skill in sword work did not increase, and he had yet to fling an arrow without hurting himself. Were it not for Elorn, who bettered himself in all things daily, Emily would have been fragged or exiled. So Elorn bade Emily to stay closely to him at all times, save when he was with Uriel, which was more often. On the second week of spring, Elorn, Emily, Thylor, and Gorn prepared for a hunt that would last a week's time. And upon the steps to Uriel's chambers, Elorn kissed her goodbye, and left without account of his growing peril. A day later, Elorn heard a terrible sound come yonder, one he had never heard afore. He pondered if it could have been an owl. But it was not. Said Thylor, "We must turn now, quietly, and should we be seen, do not run." And Elorn said to him, "What so you mean? What is this beast that we hear? Tell me now." But thereupon Emily screamed loudly, as he had fallen and found himself before the sweating jaws of a great brown beast, with teeth like sharpened swords that jutted past its lips. "Bear! O Elorn, a bear!" shouted Emily. He rose hastily, but with little balance, and darted towards whence he came, though the bear was faster, and struck his hamstring with its claw, and closed its mouth around the crown of Emily's head. He screamed and cried as his bleeding brow gan to leak into his eyes, though therewith, ere more harm was done, he was released. for the bear had been smote by the arrow of Gorn. But alas, it did little to thwart the beast, as it changed aggression towards its attacker and ran at full speed. Gorn readied another arrow and shot the bear's breast, but to no avail. Ere he could ready his bow again, he was pounced, and his chest was rent open with a single bite from the beast. He screamed thus that all therein should hear his agony. But it was not enough to kill him. Afore the bear could again maim his flesh, he drew a dagger and struck its eye hastily, wherewith Ilorn swung his sword at its neck. Half blinded, the bear turned to him and swiped him down, biting into Ilorn's knee, and moved up onto his arm. It bit through his hand, but again, ere more harm could be done, Thylor, with blade in hand, severed the head of the beast in one swift strike. With that, the hunt was done. Rather than attempt to carry with them their prize, they assisted themselves back to Aletheia, as both Ilorn and Emily were in great pain. Gorn, though with the most gruesome injury, healed himself, and used the time doing so to teach Ilorn how to mend wounds. He had him practice on his hurt knee and Emily's rent leg. Though when they returned, they were bid to be abed, for both Ilorn and Emily were again incapable of walking without aid. Forlorn, Ilorn wished to return to his old bed to be aside Emily, his friend. Though his hearth was lager and his sheets were thicker, he felt cold without his company and the joy they gave him. As such time passed, he began to forget his mother and his former abode. He even went days without a thought of Oddmere or Bajor. For the first weeks they were gone, he would oft watch the horizon, praying they would arrive safely with good news. But as spring came, he accepted what many had told him, that they were dead or lost within the mountains no man should ever fare towards, let alone lay eyes upon. Amidst such deep thought, in the realm of his own contemplation, he was visited by Uriel, who approached him in loose silk that gave her form no privacy. As she climbed upon the bed and felt for Ilorn's chest, she whispered to him her fair greetings and kissed his cheek, though he did not wince or pay her heed. So she said, "What troubles you, Ilorn, my love?" And at this he said, "I seem to have forgotten my place of old. I am not who I once was." "For I have made you a man," she answered him. "I saved you from my sister, and provided you with knowledge of sword work and hunting. I have even pardoned your friends from whatso punishment they were condemned to. For this, I trust you have uttermost loyalty to me, do you not?" she asked him. "I am loyal to you," answered Ilorn, "and I love you greatly." Then Uriel grabbed his chin and forced his gaze upon her own and asked him, "Then verily you are my shadow and my sword, my light and my warmth, and under even peril and darkness that may torment you, you would still choose my side?" Ilorn broke her grasp from his face and sat upright. "What other side am I to choose, the owl's? Please mine, Uriel, I am much too tired for riddles." She again grabbed him, thus he became frightened. "And under even grim ashen paths that are forked by your love for me, you would still choose my side?" Without understanding her words, he nodded, and she smiled, though without want of her company any more he dragged himself away to the farther end of his bed. "Oh, my Ilorn, I do not mean to leave you vexed. I only mean you well." "I think you mean yourself well," retorted Ilorn. At this, she bit her lip and gripped the red rose sheets beneath her. "I mean all my people well, and you most of all. I will make you my king, and together, when this war's done, we shall rule this land. Does this thought not please my love?" "I do not see it happening," said Ilorn, not meaning any offense. "I mean, I do not see myself as king, With you I feel as though my father with mother, strong and powerful, but I cannot help but feel young when I am with Imlay. Sometimes I still wish to explore the world and find new lands. Uriel rolled next to him again and pinched his elbow. I know your leg is hurt, but perhaps your heart is as well. You have not spoken of such boyish things since we first met. They're not boyish, said Elorn, turning away from her. Of course they're not, said Uriel. I meant you no offense. Perhaps a tale to quail your distraught mind? Elorn did not answer, though this often meant a yes with him. She began. My home, the house of Arnott, was long ago found. I'm in no mood for history, said Elorn. It bores me and entertains nobody. He felt Uriel's grasp on his arm tighten. She continued. Some say we are the youngest of the ancient houses. Know you their names? She asked, hoping to ail his spirits. My mother used to make me recite them afore supper, said he. She made me recite and remember a poem even. Bronn the old, of mines and hammers, Bovjorn the great, whom fish great waters, and Senra who pride over fists like adders, and lastly Arnott, who fight along heart, who do not scatter. It isn't very good, Elorn added. She wasn't a poet, but it pleased her that I knew it. Uriel clapped her hands and laughed. It pleases me much so, said she. We who fight with heart, who do not scatter. Such things exist only in legend, I assume. What legend? Asked Elorn. I know of no tales, verily. He rolled over to face her and saw her smile. Her mien was light and full of warmth greater than the fire across from them. Well, it is said that our house was founded long ago by women from a far-off place, rescued valiantly by holy men who worship light and beauty. But it is also said that many years later, after several generations even, some men abused these women, and so they left them. They left them? Asked Elorn. Well, not truly, said Uriel. She who is said to have founded this house one day wandered into the forest and was met with a white hart who named himself Arn, the great antlered steed. He was majestic and beautiful, and took her whithersoever the wind blew. He taught her the song of birds, and often took her to great fountains and falls yet seen by man, even places that no man dare venture forth into, by daylight, or with 100 torches or swords. But with him she was safe. When their friendship grew old, the lady asked Arn, Why do you teach me your tongue and show me your knowledge, though keep it secret from all other things? And he answered her, For you are beautiful, and I see how your husband spurns you with words and splays you with whips. For this answer she began to cry, for his account was true, and she was ashamed. Verily, the lore of me is greater than I could have ever guessed it to be. But what am I to do, O Arn? Arn answered, Kill him, if you must. He is evil, and evil things do not belong in this realm. I must not, and then evil I too shall be, answered the lady. Then combat him, said Arn. He is larger than thee, and too stronger, but thou art in possession of a far greater strength, and that is the strength of kindness and admiration. For with the raise of thine hand, so too shall 100 more stand with you, and when this is done, you will take them far north to the sacred place that I have shown you, the place that antlered people call Huron, the blessed heather. And so the lady left then with more grief than ire. Arn's counsel had left her greatly distraught for nigh a fortnight time. But when she left to return to the forest, she was thwarted by her husband, who had returned from a hunt. Behind him she saw the white fur that she knew so well, which was like silk and warm love to the touch, as no other thing had ever brought her so great a consolation in her dark life. Her husband, with the blood of Arn upon his hands, grasped her shoulders and left her stained, but she therewith collapsed in a swoon of heavy woe, for never had such gore been before her. Her husband laughed and bade her silence, though when she did not, he swung at her, but was blocked by her arm. At this time, all there exited their homes to see the fell deed that was done, and before all, the lady challenged her husband to a duel. She said to him, "No more shall I suffer your fell hands, or succumb to your selfish wants, and with the darkness you have installed in me, I shall fuel the voice of the voiceless, and be the light in their darkness. I will beat you as you have beaten me, and forsake you here with naught to company, save this carcass that I love." She therewith struck him and beat him, and though at first her blows seemed weak, they became stronger, and soon she overpowered him and knocked him still with the felled bough of a hewn tree. Anon thereafter, the many others who suffered the same as her rose up, and fought until day dawned and lightened the senseless bodies they had smote. And, as Arn had charged her, she led them far into the sacred place she once visited, Huren, the blessed heather. The people named her their lady, and those whom they diverged from forever after remain silent over the matter, for they are still to this day ashamed of it. "Who were they?" asked Ilorn. "They were the Bauvjorn, and the lady's husband was their ancient lord. However, I beg you, do not mention this tale to their kind, as they will either deny it or laugh at you." Uriel smiled wholly. "But it is only a legend. We have known only few others who have ridden a great heart like the first lady of our house." In a night so somber, wherein no voices made cries, Ilorn slept. No torch or candle flickered and danced light upon the walls, and no bright hearth in quarters roared flames for warmth. Not even the moons gave light to shine upon puddles and wells. Though yet thus darkness dwelled this night, the many without upon walls and towers watched with dreary eyes that needed rest. On such warm nights no man was forewarned of great danger that was to come, and so anon, without foreboding, the fell foul came in a great sum. Ilorn awoke to the screams of distant men behind walls and found no fire burning before him. Uriel cried his name and in great fear shouted to him, "Ilorn, awake! O Ilorn, awake now!" With dreary eyes he looked to and fro, and lit a candle upon the first scream he heard. "Where is Emily, Thylor, and Gorn? Bring them here now!" In great panic Uriel did not answer him, and before them, behind their window, a man with torch came into view, crying terrible words with bloodied hands to his eyes and face. For fear of his life alone, he took his sword and pummeled the glass, splintering a great crack upon its surface. But before he could smite it again, great talons lifted him and flew him further yonder where no man could see. Ilorn stood to see without, though could not, for the man had obscured the pane with blood and dirt. "Where is my sword?" he shouted. "You dast not fight, Ilorn. You are hurt and can barely stand." "I do not care. What you think is not my concern. I am a man grown with sword, and I shall use it amain to protect these people, myself if I must." And so Ilorn limped down this hall. Therein he found only darkness. But before the doors he found armed men in leather bearing the entrances to his place. And so he shouted to them, "What do you? Why do you not fight?" And without answer, he learned that many men and women were trying their best to trespass for safety. But again he shouted, "Why do you not fight?" And one man with spear turned to him with frightened eyes so terrible that Ilorn himself felt fear for his own life. Thereupon, As Ilorn grabbed a mounted sword, the screams without became a chorus, and in harmony begged the doors to be opened. So too did the crying hoo of owl shout and screech horrific notes that made deaf men grateful. Wherewith, as the shouts of death and the sounds of flesh being torn apart greatened, the doors burst open with countless men and women spilling forth. They scattered wheresoever, this way and that, and hid in corners and in far-off rooms. As Ilorn limped to exit this place and fight, he stopped and stood still, for before him was a great wall of flesh, dead, blood, and entrails. And though some men still lay thence trapped under the weight of fellow men, and squirmed like helpless snails with their tails tacked to the earth, they shouted to him, "Help us, by God, help us!" But soon then, from beyond, they were dragged away, or lifted, or eaten, whatso they died. Within such great shock and horror, Ilorn knew neither strength nor movement. Not even his eyes could he control to look elsewhither. Anon he found himself forlorn therein, with naught but the dead and their smell of blood and entrails. Thus he dropped his sword, and fell to his knees. He bowed his head, and then mourned silent tears he could not feel. But as he lost all hope, and forfeited his once great courage, he was grabbed by the shoulders. "Ilorn, come with me, I prithee come," shouted Ariel. Her voice recalled his waning sanity, and caused him to run to a secret asylum where they sat and lit torches. Still therein, though dimmed, he heard many dark cries, and sat still with little to say. But soon, then cried in the breast of his Savior Uriel. That next day, white feathers like snow festooned the earth, and left no soil bare. Ilorn stood tall, though crutched, and saw before him the countless dead that held to their grief and pain. Many great piles of men were put into pyres and into holes, and to his own dismay, he found not one fowl slain. He did not cry, nor did he complain. With none else to heed, the surviving Elmore of Aletha turned to him for counsel and orders. So he bade them to bring him any that were close to him, wherefore one dead man under a veil was brought before him upon a bier. With a growing pace of heart, Ilorn removed the veil, and saw that it was Gorn. He looked upon his horrible face, and shut his eyes, for the flesh upon his dead mentor had been torn from the bone. "Throw him into the pyre, but do not tell the news to Thylor, for I shall." The man before Ilorn answered him, "I beg your sorrow, Commander, but Thylor is gone. He's not been seen since last night." Ilorn put the veil back upon Gorn's face and turned away. "Then burn him anyways. No memorial is needed. I don't intend on forgetting their names." In the midst of wrack and foul blood, Ilorn sauntered to and fro in silent misery, searching for Emily. And in that place, and during that day, Ilorn looked onto the great ether, and it began to rain. "For this, Mother wished me to stay home," he thought, "and for this, Father wished me to come." The rain fell around him, trickled lightly down his cheeks, and welled shallow puddles of mire from blood and dirt. And he went forth, not again looking up into the sky. "When was I meant to take the place of my father?" thought he. "Is this why he's gone, so that I may command these people?" Though such a day was one for grief, none mourned their fallen or injured, but rather worked blankly, bereft of emotion. Then thought Ilorn, "Why do these people remain here? Why do they fight an enemy they cannot equal?" Such questions, he thought, had yet to be answered. End of part 1.